Are you always coming up with ideas? Do you marvel at successful business owners? Do you hate being told what to do? Ever take things apart just to see how they work? Are you a dreamer? If you've answered yes to any of these questions, this podcast is for you. Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Enclave with Kevin Wortham, the podcast that focuses on building, maintaining, pivoting, planning, and investing in you, the entrepreneur. But first, a word from our sponsor.
Pro Tapes and Specialties is the world leader in tape manufacturing and specialty conversion with over 40 years of experience. In addition to our pro brand of high-quality specialty adhesive tapes, we provide contract converting services that help improve your profitability, streamline your supply chain, and reduce inventory cost. We offer the most complete range of converting capabilities in the industry, such as cloth tape, double-coated tape, specialty tape, paper tape, masking tape, vinyl tape,
carton sealing tape, adhesive transfer tape, duct tape, foam tape, electrical tape, filament tape, foil tape, reflective tape.
And the tape just keeps on rolling. Visit us online today at www.protapes.com or call us at 800-345-0234. Pro Tapes, it's just how we roll.
Welcome to another fantastic episode of the Entrepreneur Enclave, Life's Coming Attraction. I'm your host, Kevin Wortham. Listen, I am so excited today because this will be a masterclass in discovering what is and what isn't extraordinary leadership. And come on, I've got my dear friend, Pastor Rupert Hall with me, and we've got our special guest and a very dear friend of mine, Dr. Broach. Dr. Broach, welcome to the platform, man. How you been?
I've been very well, thank you, and thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, I guess Pastor and I, we were here about 3 months ago.
About 3 months ago, yeah.
And you weren't able to come. So just give us a brief bio as to what you've done with yourself in those 3 months and since then, since we've last met, probably almost about 4 or 5 years ago.
Yes. As you well know, I retired tried to retire in 2012.
Okay.
So it's been a little while ago from the Ewing Township School District.
Yes.
And as superintendent of schools.
Yes.
And before that, I was interim superintendent down in Trenton.
Yes.
For 2 years.
Yes.
And I continued teaching my courses at the Rider College,
yes.
Rider University these
yes.
days. And also I did some teaching up at Trent State College, or now known as this College of New Jersey.
Yes.
So I'm going back to my roots. You hear me interchanging those names.
Yes.
And 40 years later, I'm still concerned about those educational matters that I taught about at both universities.
Yes.
And that dealt with cultural diversity issues,
yes.
Race issues, equity issues in education, and how to help schools develop atmospheres and climates where those issues are forthrightly addressed while meeting the needs of students at whatever level they're at in their education.
Yes.
Beyond that, I'm a minister in the church, and of course, it's a little bit different, but it's similar because there are growing needs, educational needs, needs of knowledge, and spheres of influence in terms of how you meet the needs of your
yes.
members and the students that go to the churches and leaders that are leading people. So there's a common ground that we all share, and that's to educate.
Yes. Now, I know that there was an event at our church, and I guess that was probably about a month or so ago.
Yes.
And immediately we said, we've got to get you on to the show. And so we're going to jump right into the conversation because you mentioned you being a minister, and pastor is a pastor. So let's talk about leadership, but from a theologian aspect. Who are some of the great leaders that are theologians that we should be following, that we should be listening to?
Well, Pastor, I'll relinquish the floor to you in respect of the area of focus.
The theologian that I look to
Yes.
for a lot of my direction may be a strange one to some of our listeners.
Okay.
It was a theologian who started in Germany.
Okay.
This theologian was part of the confessing movement in Germany around the time that Hitler was coming to power.
Okay.
His name was Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Dietrich Bonhoeffer was a Christian, but it was a Christian theologian, but he was a theologian that put his faith into action.
Okay.
One of his famous works is the costly faith.
Okay.
And what Bonhoeffer said was, it's not enough just to have faith, you have to put it in action. And in fact, he was part of the resistance movement in Germany around the time of Hitler's coming to power. And in fact, he was arrested, and he later died in one of the concentration camps 2 days before they were liberated.
Wow.
But in the interim, Bonhoeffer came to America, and he taught at Union Theological Seminary for a while.
Yes.
But more importantly, he taught Sunday school at Abyssinian Baptist Church. And he was heard to say that his experience at Abyssinian amongst our African American ancestors was one of the most enriching experiences he had as a theologian. And bottom line, he, for me, is one that said, yes, I have faith, but I'm not going to sit inside the church. I'm going to get out and demonstrate my faith. Unfortunately, he, his brother, and a few other people were arrested for an attempted murder on Hitler. But I'm not suggesting that we have to engage in that type of activity, but we have to do something beyond our faith.
Okay.
You know, that sort of thing.
Okay.
I went back a little bit historical about theologians. But,
No, now that's good, because I know on your email,
right?
You always talk about James Cone.
Correct.
And so now, where was James Cone in relationship to this theologian that you just mentioned?
Well, James Cone came along a little bit later.
Okay, gotcha.
You know, and James Cone was from Arkansas, and he found that when he went to Garrett Theological Seminary, he heard about a lot of the European theologians like Tillich, like Bonhoeffer, and a few others, and he found that their message did not have an application to the faith experience of Black people in America.
Okay.
And it was Cone that penned the theology of Black liberation theology, which basically says that, you know, Jesus came intentionally to the poor and oppressed, and unless as a Christian you are dealing with the poor and oppressed of your culture, you are missing the true Christian message.
Okay. Let's stop right there. Poor and oppressed.
Poor and oppressed.
So I want you to tell me about the Poor People's Campaign. That would be a great segue. Let's talk about that briefly.
Well, back in 1968, Dr. King was organizing the Poor People's March, and his goal was to get at least 2,000 people to come to Washington, D.C. to express the needs and the desires and the rights of poor folks.
Yes.
But we know on April 4th, 1968, his physical life was cut short, but Ralph Abernathy and the rest of his contemporaries, they carried on, and there was a Poor People's March. Fast forward about 50 years, Dr. William Barber, one of the first people that, in my opinion, is putting meat behind Dr. King's legacy, because we know now on MLK Day, we go out and pick up trash. But Dr. Barber says, no, we got to do more than that. And what we're doing in the Poor People's Campaign is putting forth the desires and the issues and the needs of the poor and low-wage people.
Yes.
You know, in terms of both access to health care, a livable, not a minimum wage, the economic racism where in a lot of our large cities that were industrialized, the ground and the water are polluted by lead pipes, and most of the environmental pollution is centered in poor and oppressed neighborhoods.
Yes.
On a national level, he's talking about a reduction in the military budget.
Okay.
You know, so much of our federal budget is for the military, and if we took like 5% of the military budget and put it to our cities and for the poor and oppressed, it would be a major impact. But one of the central messages of the Poor People's Campaign is voting.
Yes.
We are a democratic nation, but we are finding out that low-wage and poor people don't vote at the frequency of everyone else.
Okay.
We're also finding out that about 30% of the constituents of possible voters in the area are poor and oppressed, such that if they were to vote in block, changes could be made.
Okay.
You know,
Absolutely.
and one of our major efforts is to get out to vote.
Okay.
Because we talk about policy death, and what policy death, there are actual laws in place which create a continuation of poverty,
Okay.
that create a continuation of outsidedness, that create a continuation of the haves and the have-nots, you know, that sort of thing. And nothing will change as long as the politicians do not think that you stand in the way of them getting reelected. Because truth be known, our political system now, it used to be, I'm going to Washington, I'm going to Trenton to serve my constituents. As a matter of fact, now their primary goal is to be reelected.
Yeah.
That is their primary goal. We remember when President Obama was first elected, Mitch McConnell stated on the floor that his primary goal is to make President Obama a one-term president.
Yes.
Not to serve the people of Kentucky, which has some of the most insidious poverty in the nation, but to defeat our first black president.
Yes.
So in the Poor People's Campaign, and to get people to vote, they have to be educated.
Yes.
Yeah, they have to know what the issues are. You know, when I go up to Borden State and I talk to the brothers about the election, and they talk about, you know, 45 or Biden, they say, well, you know, Biden's done nothing for me. I said, stop. Stop right there. Do you know what he's done? Well, no, only what they say on TV. That's your first problem.
First problem.
Okay. Secondly, he's too old. Well, do you know how old 45 is? And number three, take a walk with me. Put every negative thing that you know about 45 on the table. Put every negative thing that you know about President Biden on the table.
Yes.
And do me a favor, vote for the one that has the smallest pile.
Gotcha.
You know, because as a supporter of President Biden, I'm not going to tell you that he's perfect.
Yes.
He's not perfect. There are some things that I disagree with him, just like there were some things I disagreed with President Obama.
Mm-hmm.
However, politics is a game of choice. You have two choices.
Absolutely.
And not to vote is not a choice.
Yes.
Not to vote is just a anathema to our ancestors that died fighting for the right to vote.
Gotcha.
That was a long answer to
No,
a short
but
question.
that's good,
was,
Pastor.
right.
That was good.
That was right in the historical venue that I was traveling.
Okay.
And I thank you for providing that backdrop.
Correct.
Now, Dr. Broach, I'm sorry, but I want you to jump in
Yes.
and kind of follow up with what Pastor was talking about, because I know you've got a lot of history and experience with that.
Well, I'm right with Pastor on the historical backdrop that he laid out.
Yes.
And for those of us who have been alive, and when I say alive, consciously alive,
Yes.
politically and consciously alive, we've been down this path. And one can argue or beg the question, have things gotten better? And one of the theologians, philosophers that I give a lot of credence to in terms of that journey is Howard Thurman.
Yes.
Yes.
You know,
Absolutely.
Howard Thurman talks about the responsibility of specifically the church,
Yes.
which he decries of not doing all it can do. You'll remember back in an earlier day in our history, what we needed to know about politics, we learned it in the church.
Yes.
What we needed to know or to enlighten our minds through education. Our Sunday school teachers were not only our Sunday school teachers, they were our school teachers during the day hours. So everything we needed during that time, because of laws of segregation that forbade us to congregate and to meet and to be educated, just to have an education on an equal footing with our counterparts, we couldn't have it because we were not permitted by law, the Constitution itself, not to have that opportunity. So all we needed and needed to know to advance ourselves, we got it through the church.
Yes.
We didn't own land. The land that we came to was not ours. We couldn't run for office. We were not on an equal footing as far as being in that mainstream of knowledge, so we went to the church.
Yes.
And what Thurman talks about is going beyond just, one of the many things that Howard Thurman talks about in his book, Jesus and the Disinherited. And we have cultures and we have literal groups of people, African American people, that are totally, in some respects, disinherited by our government.
Yes.
They have no voice, as was brought out very well by Pastor Rupert. Many of them live in deserts of poor economies,
Yes.
Food deserts, economical deserts, education that's not equal to that of their counterparts.
Yes.
And the church was the place that caused us to have headways because of the knowledge that it brought and the empowerment that it brought to us by just going to church.
Just going to church.
So if anyone wants to know out there what's a good reason for going to church, you should go to church for all the reasons that I just delineated.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Because all we were, all we became, our first recitals, our first voice, and as a consolidated voice, it was through the church. And all you need were people like Dr. Howard Thurman,
Yes.
who was a leader and a mentor for Dr. Martin Luther King,
Yes.
to voice that.
Yes.
And so the key is, and he points out in this reading, and I've gone back to him numerous times in my experience, especially of late, because you seem to see a repeat
Yes.
Yes.
of the same history that wants to take away voting, that wants to send you on another route for education,
Yes.
or teach you a curriculum that has nothing to do with your current situation or how to come out of poverty,
Yes.
or getting a real sense of who you are, where you are, and where you need to go. Well, Thurman talks about this notion of not just being godly people, or not just being of this world or other world, heavenly, because that was the conflict with the slave.
Okay.
Always looking for a place where there would be peace by and by. What
Yes.
about right now?
Yes.
Sweet by and by.
In the sweet by and by, the pie in the sky routine. And this is what is the contrast to what Thurman is talking about, using our voice, using our power. No one can disempower us when we unify ourselves.
Yes.
No one can tell us how far we go or define what the scenario is, except we voice into it.
Okay.
And this is what I admire about this particular theologian who talks about our responsibility to the culture now.
Yes.
Certainly we all want to go to heaven, but the key and I find it very ironic, while everyone wants to go to heaven, they don't want to do the hard work now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And God's work is not just preaching on Sunday,
Amen.
or singing in the choir, and I love to rejoice,
Yes.
because I think a service or a church without rejoicing is a place that can be very dismal.
Yes.
But I realize that behind that, as Paul said, there has to be works.
Yes.
And I think Pastor talked very eloquently to that point. I don't put a lot of stake in an individual that talks about these high-level philosophical pie-in-the-sky ideas or political ideas unless they have the work to go with it.
Yes.
Paul said quite vividly in the scripture, show me your works without faith, and I'll show you my works with faith.
Yes.
So what faith is telling us here, that faith without works is dead.
Yes.
And this is what Thurman very eloquently, I think, in the Jesus and the Disinherited points out. We have to put our voice together. We have to put our powers together to make a change on earth.
Yes.
And it's not designed the way it's laid out in the Constitution or in the Declaration of Independence for that pathway. Because if you'll know that when the Declaration of Independence was first birthed, or the Constitution, it didn't consider black people, It didn't consider women really.
Right.
And it certainly had a disposition too about children. But certainly black men, black children, and the enslaved had no part in the Constitution or in the Declaration of Independence. In fact, that was still the argument on the floor in our houses of legislature, whether or not we should even include blacks in the discussion or in the decision as far as who freedom for all meant.
Got you.
Freedom for some, but not freedom for all, because blacks certainly were not in the consideration. But that can't be a cop-out, because we allow and we disempower ourselves by allowing others to write the scenario for us.
Gotcha.
And we have to write that scenario and take it from those that took it from us.
Okay.
And let our voices be heard and make changes on earth with our power, with the people we have, through works and through our own voices, because we will never, as far as I can see, change it with the governmental system that we have now. Democrats and Republicans, independents or otherwise, we have to take our voice back and demand that we are heard. I have people now currently within these last few weeks, I'm saying our own people, black people, African Americans, who don't even understand Juneteenth.
Yes.
Why that was celebrated in this country and how it came about and so forth and so on. Well, it came about because of the whole system and argument around slavery, even to the point of emancipation. The country wanted to go backwards, at least down in Galveston, Texas, where they didn't find out that they were free indeed by a law, a federal law, or by a federal edict until what, 2 years later?
2 years later, yes.
But let me jump in, because for the last 3 days, this Juneteenth celebration has caused me some agita.
I understand.
And let me tell you why. Everyone is saying on Juneteenth, all the slaves were made free. On Juneteenth, that's when we had no more slavery. Historically, that is incorrect.
Absolutely.
People also say that the Emancipation Proclamation freed all the slaves. That is historically incorrect. When Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, it was directed to those states that still held slaves, that were in opposition to the Union. Texas being one of them. The message did not get to them for 2 more years on June 19th. But it wasn't until the signing of the 13th Amendment that slavery was abolished. It came very shortly thereafter, but the emancipation was merely a precursor. So on my Facebook feeds, there's a happy Juneteenth, and my response was always almost.
Almost. And that didn't happen in the 13th Amendment until the turn of another century.
Correct.
Wow. So as I said, this is a master class in leadership. Now let me ask this question. So how do we create, and is there a narrative for what leadership needs to look like? And let's go small. Let's look at the city of Trenton. What does leadership look like, and who's creating that narrative? And I hope not to offend anyone with your question, with your answers.
I'll let Dr. Broach go first.
Well,
I'm recently to Trenton.
Well, let's first of all, we have to stop waiting on others to rewrite the narrative. Because you can generationally do things in such a way so long you think it's right. And you could be all the way wrong.
Wow.
And then there are some that are strong and they're wrong. But the first the first thing that I see that needs to be done is that we have a population of people that have been oppressed, where job opportunity needs to increase, and we need advocates out there voicing that and making sure those things that mean the most to the population in Trenton happens and takes place. And I don't think that's coming necessarily from the State House. It's certainly not coming from Washington. And I think that the closest way or the closest destination to solving a problem is at home. And we need to elect people that are unified on the purpose and the goals and the mission to enhance education, to enhance job opportunity, to devise programs that deal with crime issues.
Yes.
And issues that cause people to not want to be in a city. We decry the fact that businesses are leaving Trenton and
yes.
so forth. Quite honestly, you wouldn't invest money or you wouldn't invest business into a place where you wouldn't feel safe or where people wouldn't come in the first place.
Very true.
So we need a voice that handles that, but does it in a unified way.
Okay.
And not argue, take up meetings and so forth, arguing against each other or name calling or mudslinging and so forth. That does no good for anybody.
Yes.
And I've, as a citizen, in Mercer County, have seen that happen
yes.
for a long time. When the issue should not be, or the enemy should not be us, we should be the solution to the problem, and we are not the enemy.
Okay.
To each other, and that's one of the things that has to change in Trenton. The closest thing to that I've seen was under the leadership of Mayor Douglas Palmer.
Okay.
When Mayor Palmer was the governor, the
mayor.
The mayor.
Yes.
There was more unity. There was more focus
okay.
on issues that impact job creation, education, working with the city and the
yes.
mayor and the council, and not this divide that sometimes finds its way into getting us further and further away from solutions.
So now, do you think there was a greater opportunity for collaboration under his administration than now? And how important is collaboration?
I see collaboration to a great extent under Mayor Gussiora.
Okay.
But I saw it even greater. I saw real impacts, real inroads
okay.
Being made, not to belittle the efforts of Mayor Gussiora, because
okay.
there's a lot of new excitement and new revitalization
yes.
In the town going on now. But sometimes you have to take the bull by the horn, so to speak,
yeah.
and whatever it takes to wrestle and win is what you have to do. And I saw Mayor Palmer
okay.
Doing that during his administration
okay.
In terms of building homes and houses and collaboration more between the boards of education and the town council.
Okay.
More places of recreation and so forth for the youth.
Yes.
Because the town always is beleaguered by the question, we need to do more for youth
yes.
and so forth, and we need to do more of this. But we need various collaborators to collaborate with each other and not fight one another and not be divided over issues at the end of the day and at the end of history won't matter at all.
Now, I'm going to put Pastor on the spot. He is a great collaborator. And so let's talk about some of your partnerships. Let's talk about some of your collaborations. But let's also share with the listening audience some of the good news first and then talk about your collaborations.
Well, dovetailing on what Dr. Broach just said, I'm a relative newcomer to Trenton, but in that short time frame, for the last 3.5 years, I've served as president of the Kingsbury Board.
Mm-hmm.
We all know about Kingsbury Tower.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
And I will tell you that over this 3-year period, the collaboration between the community, the elected officials, and the city officials and the state officials, I've seen it develop.
Mm-hmm.
3 years ago this July, the former managers left abruptly.
Yes.
And in that time period, we were left, as a board, left to scramble. But in this 3-year time period, there's been more collaboration with the county and the state and the city with the Kingsbury Corporation for the benefit of upwards of 1,000 residents than has ever taken place within the last 50 years of Kingsbury. Mm-hmm. So that collaboration and what you speak about, it's coming, it's growing. You know, I live in South Jersey. I'm familiar with Camden. I worked and I practiced law in the city of Philadelphia, and I'm born and raised outside of Baltimore. Mm-hmm. And those 3 cities, I have seen where they came from, and I've seen how the business community, the elected officials, and the city officials work together for improvement for the people. Mm-hmm. So we're seeing a growing amount of collaboration in Trenton.
Absolutely.
Especially, and I've seen it firsthand, because 3.5 years ago, it was really rough. However, we just had a board meeting last night, and we reveled in the fact that we've come a long way from where we were 3 years ago, when we had people in city government, in the city hall, that did not know who owned Kingsbury, as something as basic as that. You know, so you can imagine if there are doubts about something as foundational, you can imagine everything else. But we've come a long way in the collaboration piece.
If I may jump in, and I think that has a lot to do with leadership.
Yes.
There's been a new sense of revitalization with newly elected members of government, from the council and city hall to the mayor himself, who have pulled their focuses together to make this happen. And I've been following the work over there at Kingsbury, and I concur with you 100%. That I think with new leadership that gets on the same page, that focuses on the same goals, because at the end of the day, why are we elected? Why are we appointed? Is to serve the people. And that's the outcry across the country in terms of our national government. Who are we serving? Where is the government by the people, for the people? Where is the preamble of the Constitution, we the people of the United States? Where is that now? And if we miss that mission, and if we're not focused on the people, or if it's a personal agenda, or fighting over who gets credit over what initiative, you're not going to get very far in the name of the people. And so that's what, to me, leadership looks like. It looks at the mission. It looks at why we're serving, why were you appointed, why were you elected in the first place, and where is your body of work? If you want to deserve the re-election of any level in government, where's your body of work?
Now, when leadership goes awry, who in the community can set the tone for saying, we need you to reorganize yourselves? Who does that when leadership goes awry?
I think when things are good government is working the way it should be, should be the people. Because if you study governments and so forth, even the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, where they borrowed from other countries such as France and England and other governments that represented the people, the power was in the hands of the people to even replace those governments that didn't serve the people in a way that met the needs of the people and the community and the environments that they were
Now,
supposed to
Dr.
be
Broach,
serving.
I got a personal question. You are a wise man. I'm enjoying this conversation.
Well, I don't know. Certain days I feel more wise than others.
Has anyone in what we call our current leadership reached out to you to tap your brain to say, am I doing right as a leader?
A few have. A few have, and I'm a forever learner. And so I'm always looking to learn from others. That's where I see the value of collaboration. And we have had many great mentors and stewards, if you will, over the community and so forth. We need those people. And we need to, wherever we have them come back and speak into the situation, it's always a valued opportunity. I think sometimes we miss those opportunities because if it's not myself leading the program, or if it's not my original idea or whatever, sometimes people feel as though they can't reach out. But it shouldn't be that way, because we all are in this thing together. It's our community. You'll remember the arguments that we had around the table over private versus public education. Whether charter school or public, all of that, I totally ignore that argumentation, because at the end of the day, in a holistic sense, all of these learners, all of these children are our children.
Yes.
Whether they go to public school, whether they go to a charter school, or whether they go to a parochial school, a majority of them are going to come back to the community in some capacity, some way or another. So why not do an excellent or a stellar job with all of them?
Yes.
Now, where the divide comes is through who's funding it. Whether it's federal, whether it's state money, federal money, or whatever, that sometimes becomes the divide.
Okay.
And has kept us separated. But my worldview of looking at it is all of the learners are ours. So we ought to do a stellar job or an excellent job with meeting the needs of all of the people.
Yes.
Not because of the party that they represent, not because of the colors of the party, or where they live, uptown, downtown, or whatever the case may be, but because they're going to come back, and for the most part, they're going to be citizens in an area that you serve.
Yes.
So why not do a stellar job and serve them all in an equitable and fair way?
Now, well, Pastor, I was going to ask this question. In your leadership capacity, what have been some of the challenges, particularly at Kingsbury, that you had to overcome? And did people question your leadership?
Well, the leadership was questioned initially, but people got to know me.
Okay.
And they know me, and they got to know me more than just the pastor at Turning Point United Methodist Church. They got to know me as someone who practiced law for 27 years. They got to know me as someone who was a commercial banker in Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. They got to know me as a graduate of the Wharton School. But most importantly, I believe, which enhanced the perception of my leadership, they got to know me as a person who, for the first 13 years of his life, lived in a house with no indoor plumbing. Mm-hmm. And there was a part in my heart, beyond the education, beyond being a pastor, beyond my career, that I had a heartfelt need to serve those people who are in a situation similar to where I came from.
Yes.
And to express that wherever you are, there is still hope.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And standing in that shadow, I think, enhanced the perception of my leadership.
Okay.
But number two, they also saw me as not one that just talk the talk. I made sure that I've been visible.
Absolutely.
And a credit to the current council. When this all started 3 years ago, it was almost unanimous, let's tear the place down. But to their credit, and this is part of good leadership, they didn't stop there. They did their homework. They started studying the facts. They started coming out on a rainy Friday night to listen to a presentation.
Yes.
They came on a rainy Saturday, to listen to another presentation. They came on a Sunday in May last year, all of the council people but one, the county exec from his office. But they said, I know what my opinion was, but let me continue to learn and find out the facts. And today, I'm happy to say one of the staunchest opponents of the Kingsbury redevelopment has turned into one of the staunchest advocates.
Yes.
And that comes from the desire to always learn, not just to be, this is my opinion and I'm going to stay here. Mm-hmm. No, this is my opinion, but let me do some more research.
Absolutely.
Now, question to you both. You guys are giving out so much information on what it takes to be a leader. Just to, this is my opinion, would you guys be willing to do a master class in leadership? I think you guys would be interested, but I think that folks, because you don't belong to the right clique, they wouldn't show up. Mm-hmm. How do we break that?
Well, for one thing, and I agree with Pastor Rupert 100%. I'm glad you invited me today. We have like minds. That you have to, one who leads best, in my professional opinion, leads by example.
Yes.
You got to get out there. You can't be, and not, there's some good politicians. Now, that sounds like a misnomer in the 21st century, especially with the way things are evolving now in politics. But the good or effective, let me say, politician knows you have to be known.
Yes.
And you're not known by coming around during every electoral cycle
Yes.
just to get votes, but you're known beyond the votes.
Yes.
You're known in the community. You're known in educational circles. You're known in the marketplace.
Yes.
And wherever there's suffering or those that have no voice, that's where you find yourself.
Yes.
Right.
That's how you get, to me, that should be the criteria for being elected, by your visibility, by your presence. Presence goes a long way.
Yes, it does.
That's number one. Number two, those that work around you, try to develop a team that's going where you're going.
Yes.
And to me, the work of people like Howard Gardner, for instance,
Yes.
and Daniel Goleman, who talk about multiple intelligences. If your voice is the only voice that's heard in the room as a leader, you need to change rooms.
Okay.
And I say that very, very
Yes.
seriously.
Mm-hmm.
If you're the only opinion and the only voice, my way or the highway, you're not a very good leader.
Yes.
But what you want are people that are going to have conflicting opinions
Yes.
and beliefs. And you need the finest and the best and the brightest from a variety of intelligence.
Yes.
Not just, as Howard Gardner puts it, not just mathematical intelligence. I need somebody that understands people.
Yes.
Maybe I have a good grip on it, but I've got somebody in my cabinet that really is out there
Right.
on the rainy days, on the stormy days, on the days where folk are finding themselves at food pantries or having problems economically or having mismatch between their child's skills and abilities and
Yes.
what the educational system is providing. I need somebody to be out there to help advocate for that.
Yes.
So whatever the interests and needs of the people are, give me a cabinet, because truly, you don't know it all.
Mm-hmm.
No one of us is as smart as all of us put together. So that's the kind of collaboration I'm talking about.
Okay.
You know, and whether or not this person has been in office for 5 years or 10 years or 4 cycles or whatever, my question always is, show me your resume.
Yeah. But again,
Show me what you've done
This-
to address and meet the needs of this vast, multifaceted, multi-need group of individuals in the community where you've met their needs. And if you can't show me that, somewhere in your resume, during the next election time, I need to make sure I don't make the mistake of voting for the same people who don't have a resume that can demonstrate that they've been meeting the needs and interests of the people in the public that got you there in the first place.
No. This is good, and I thank you. But again, I'm just bringing. I want to break it down to something very minute and very personal. When people don't like you, or you don't belong to the right clique, how do you bring leadership amongst them?
Well, Dr. Broach said, you have to lead by example.
Okay.
And you have to lead from a foundation of truth, lead from a foundation of relationship,
Yes.
and lead from a foundation of trust.
Okay.
Now, that's not an overnight thing, you know, especially in the political environment that we are under, even nationally, where someone became maybe the most powerful, elected to be one of the most powerful persons, maybe the most powerful person on the face of the earth, with never having a job before that job, with never being in public service.
Yes.
Okay, so that screwed up the whole rubric of what it means to be an elected official.
Yes.
Absolutely.
In the conscious mind. So now there's something floating out there. Oh, I don't have to serve people. I just have to have a lot of money to get elected. So
Yes.
we got to flip that whole script. We see it at the national level, but what's at the national level trickles down to the local level.
Absolutely.
You know, that sort of thing.
Yes.
So in the local level, you just have to do, and I say, you can't do it all in your sphere of influence. You demonstrate those leadership qualities.
Yes.
And by the grace of God and by human nature, what you're doing in this sphere of influence will grow.
Yes.
You know, it's not going to grow overnight
Yep.
because there's going to be tension.
It's a
Yep.
process.
There's going to be tension. But at the end of the day, if you do that, you get to sleep at night and say, I'm not where we want to be,
Right.
but we're not where we were.
Where we were.
You know, that sort
Yes.
of thing.
Absolutely.
And it's a growing process. And there are a lot of good people who are looking for that type of leadership that you know not of individually.
Right.
And the moment you start being specific and intentional, I believe that those people will start to coalesce, and all these different organizations will start to see that, you know, and then you start to create that critical mass.
Absolutely.
You know?
Now,
I
I've
agree
watched
with that.
you. I've watched you work,
Right.
so I've seen your ability to transcend different pockets of
Right.
influences. But I've also seen you do a great job networking. Dr. Broach, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Very much so.
Yeah.
I was just saying again, that's that collaborative networking
Yes.
Right.
that I was indicating in my previous comments. It's too big for you, one
Yes.
individual, and as a leader, you're trying to make change, and sometimes some changes are like, how shall I say? It's like trying to move a ocean liner
Yes.
on the dime, and we know how reckless that can be.
Yes.
It's a gradual thing. You don't even see it when it's happening. So you have to do it gradually in a process and so forth. That's why I always encouraged in the educational system, before leaders became leaders and principals and even superintendents or commissioners of education, it's a good thing if you understand about teaching.
Yes.
It's a good thing if you understand a little bit about learning
Yes.
and how that takes place and who are the learners. And it's another powerful element if you really understand your belief about learners,
Okay.
period, before you do all these other grandiose things in leadership. What do you really feel and believe about people? How about the human element, people? And what are your relationship with those people that you teach, that you lead, that you're creating an atmosphere for learning? What do you really believe and think about them? That's how you begin to coalesce other minds around
Yes.
you by what you do more than what you say.
Yes.
Because there are people who can quote you the mission statement, the goal statement of their organization or of their firm, but they know very little about people.
Yes.
And they care lesser about whether they're black or Hispanic or brown or whatever they are.
Yes.
But once you understand what keeps them up at night,
Yes.
the same, you'll probably come to the bottom line that the same concerns at the end of the day that they have, you have them too.
Yes.
So what are you doing to mitigate some of those issues and concerns that the very people that elected you to be here, what are you doing to cause them to stay up less at night,
Yes.
to cause their money to go farther,
Yes.
to cause the path to education to be a reality for many more of them? That's why before leading, if you can teach, it's even the greater asset.
Okay.
And I've said it time and time and time again, if I had one thing to go back and do more of now that I'm supposed to be retired, it would be teaching.
Okay.
It would be teaching. It would be advocating in the community
Yes.
and pushing those people in that have been pushed out
Yes.
and being the voice for those. And when people see you do that with that level of transparency, and we could all do it better.
Yes.
When I say that, none of us are perfect.
Absolutely.
And I don't see anybody flying around with wings yet.
Yeah.
But until we get our wings, we have work to do
Yes.
beyond election cycles.
Yes.
We have work to do beyond our church services and feeling joyful on Sunday and then going back on Monday and going back into the same environment and doing nothing about it
Yes.
or little about it, as Thurman sets forth. There's a scouring rebuke of how heavenly minded we are, but not enough earthly minded
Yes.
to make a difference in our perspective walks of life. And we
Yes.
have to do a better job with that
Yes.
before we even get to heaven. If you really want to do God's work, start on earth.
Gotcha.
Two
Good.
things that Dr. Bush just brought to mind about the ship analogy. A pastor, Dr. Edwin Ellis down in Willingboro, told me this: if you want to make change and you're on a ship, if you make a quick 90-degree turn, number one, you're going to lose people. and the boat may sink.
The boat may sink.
But if you
lose
want
your
to go
cargo.
over here, you may have to take a long arc.
Right.
You may have to go right and make a long arc. It's going to take a longer time.
Yes.
But when you arrive to your desired destination, you'll have more people on the boat. People understand what it's all about.
Yes.
And more likely than not, the boat won't sink. Number two.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, go
number
ahead.
two, everybody that I see in the street, everybody that comes to our church for food or clothing, every one of God's people has a spark of the divine.
Okay.
There's no one that's born of a woman that does not have a spark of the divine.
Yes.
Now, God gives us our freedom of choice, and we make choices that hinders that spark, sometimes even to the point of but that spark of the divine never goes out.
Right.
Yes.
It may be overcome, and because of the decisions, it may be nullified by the end of your physical existence.
Yes.
But as long as you have a physical life, there's a spark of the divine in all of us. So as I'm meeting people, especially people that on the outside shell, they don't look like they are disinherited. I have my goal, my obligation is to find that spark.
Find the spark.
That spark of the divine. And one simple thing that I practice is when people are standing in line for food or clothing, just do something very revolutionary. I go to them and I say, "What's your name?" Asking a person their name, I think, gives a flicker to that spark of the divine.
Yes.
Because a person's name, you're identifying that they are not just another nameless individual. You are announcing to them that I believe that we have equality as fellow human beings on this
Yes.
on this planet, regardless of our current situation.
Yes.
Because our current situation is not necessarily our ultimate reality.
Gotcha.
So it's that relationship and that trust and that loving God's people and understanding that but for the grace of God, there go I.
There go I.
Yeah.
Talking to some of the people that come to church, and I start talking, and some of these people have been state workers. Some of these people have had high jobs. Some of these people are artists.
Right.
One guy would say, "I'm an author." And I said, "Yeah, you're an author." "I'm an author."
Right.
"It's on Amazon."
Right. And there he is.
There he is.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So going back to the leadership thing, the leadership starts with an understanding and a love and a desire to help people.
Yes.
That sort of thing.
Yes.
At any level. But when you mentioned the ship analogy, it brought to
Yeah.
mind that to make change, if you go like this, even the people that were with you may jump off. They may fall.
Right. That's right.
But if you go like
Go
this
out the
and
long way around.
go the long way around, you will get there ultimately.
Now-
Another element before you leave that.
It looks like we're going to have a part 3 to this, but while we were prepping for this, you had mentioned your professor, and I really wanted you to speak to that on camera, Dr. Samuel DeWitt. Proctor.
Right.
Yeah.
Samuel DeWitt Proctor.
Yeah. Can we speak to him about how he had been a major influence in your career?
Yes. One of the major influences, this whole issue which drives me still, and as well as the late, the professor we just laid to rest and had a celebration for.
Cone?
Who was it?
Not Dr. Cone?
No, it was
No.
at our church, Eleanor Elise. Forgot her name. We all went break.
We'll go back. we'll go back. We'll come back to it. But people like Dr. Proctor showed us that we are the voices that make the change.
Yes.
We have to be the voices to make the change. And in the book, The Miseducation of the Negro, Carter Woodson,
Yes.
we've been taught information, or we've been taught a curriculum that doesn't enhance how we make change.
Yes.
We've been taught in the curriculum that we've been the lesser. We've been taught in curriculum that from the point of the slave. But there's power in your voice
Yes.
and in unity of that voice. And one of the things Dr. Proctor demonstrated
Yes.
in the South and coming north and becoming a great philosopher, a professor of our age did, was he took those times to call on skills and call on gifts, as you pointed out, that he had, not coincidentally, but because of his parents, because of our ancestors, because of the ages of education that he came through to make changes in a world that miseducate black people, to do less than, to not meet their goals, to be the followers and not the leaders.
Settle for.
To settle for, and instead of going above it and beyond. And that's one of the things I learned from him. Another thing, if you want to know history and have this history scenario be accurate, don't just read the books, just don't have the teachers that are in front of you, but go to the bibliographies in the book and read all of the books in the bibliography. Not just the teachers that are in front of you, but the teachers that you least suspect sometimes are your greatest teachers. And we can't discount anyway. I want to go back to that spark of the divine that God has put in many teachers around us that we don't even represent. This is what I learned from Dr. Proctor. Some of those teachers can be your barber. How many times do you sit in the barber's seat where they become your father? They become your philosopher. They become your political direction.
They become your preacher.
They become your preacher if you sit in their seat long enough and be willing to learn something. The people at the supermarket, but you get where I'm going? Our teachers are many, and we discount them often. And the phenomena that I see here in America, we don't give credence and respect enough to all of the teachers. I mean all of the teachers in the educational system, the teachers that could be your grandma, your grandfather, or that barber, or your beautician. Those are teachers. But in an institutional sense, we can empower and we can dignify the art and the act of teaching better than we do in this country. In countries like India, in countries that are not necessarily in this hemisphere, they reverence teachers, so therefore they get top students. They reverence teachers and pay them a little more than what we pay them in this country for what they're worth, and they get the result of it, in the end result of it in their students. And just do the comparison to see where are we in past years to where we are now in terms of our educational product.
Have a name I want to hit you with.
We need to do better and dignify teachers and pay them what they're worth and stop doing some of the, I just think, the tragic treatment of teachers in this country has to stop.
Dr. Elsie Collins.
Dr. Elsie Collins was one of those teachers.
Listen, we want to end on a real super high note. And Pastor, you don't need a drum roll, but you want to share anything about your new direction that you're moving into? You want to share that with us today?
Effective June 30th, I will not be the reported pastor for Turning Point United Methodist Church, but instead the Lord has led me to start a new nonprofit ministry, and the name is Hope for the City.
Wow!
And the concept is that we have a lot of good people doing a lot of good things for a lot of people, but I'm finding out we're feeding the same people for 25 years. We're giving free clothing to the same people for 25 years. We're providing housing, affordable housing for the same people for 25 years. And we have to attach to what we're doing a vehicle and a strategy for them to go from being a total taker to one day being a giver. And that's a part of that. A major part of that is increasing their accountability. To increasing their self-esteem. There's more self-esteem in paying a quarter for a meal than getting a meal for free. There's more self-esteem in paying $1 for a pair of dungarees than getting a pair for free. And we have to counteract this mindset that I'm going to continually be a beggar. And at the foundation of that is generating and letting them know that there is hope beyond Trenton.
Yes.
One of the things that I've seen here in Trenton, and I've see it in Philadelphia, that too many of our fellow citizens don't have any hope beyond the 4 block area in which they live. They don't even know. If you tell them about New York, they say that might as well be Los Angeles, that sort of thing. The simple act of putting children and teenagers, even some grown folk, on a bus and driving to New York, or going to Philadelphia, or going to D.C., to show them that there is world beyond Trenton, and there is still hope. So as you are receiving, these meals and this quote unquote free stuff, you have to always remember that there is still hope.
Yes.
And as a Christian, I will tell you that my hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness.
Yes.
But also know that the theme of hope can be found in Islam.
Yes.
The theme of hope can be found in Judaism.
Yes.
That sort of thing. I'm a Christian. Jesus is my Savior. However, we have brothers and sisters who will say, "Oh, I don't go to church because I'm a Muslim." I say, "Have you read your Quran? You don't look like you are exhibiting any hope." That sort of thing. So we are developing, the process. We look for a starting off a grand opening, so to speak, the 1st of August, but by prayer and support, I'm excited.
Okay. Listen, we're gonna end on that note because we've got more to cover, and we're gonna plan to cover that. But Dr. Broach, fantastic. Thank you. You have been a wonderful guest, and I'm still learning from you.
Thank you
and then,
for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, Pastor, my friend, this is what we always talk about,
Yes,
man. We got to do more of this. There got to be a series of this, all right? You guys have been fantastic. This is the Entrepreneur Enclave, and we will stay connected. Thank you so much.
That concludes another episode of the Entrepreneurial Enclave with Kevin Wortham, the podcast that focuses on building, maintaining, pivoting, planning, and investing in you, the entrepreneur. We hope you found this episode informative and enlightening. If you have any questions or comments about any of our episodes, please call 609-731-9311 or email kevin@minding-our-business.com. We look forward to joining us for our next one. Until next time.